They thought they had banished us forever. But now... finally... we have returned.
Hopefully I'm not talking over the esteemed Lord Malgus, or Darth Malgus. But either way, hopefully we have a pretty good crowd today. This is going to be fun. I'm going to be trying something new. There's going to be a theme for the next few weeks where I'm going to be reading one of my upcoming novellas. That's the plan. But I have to bring in my guests, beginning with my esteemed guests. Please welcome.
我が力、我が刃、我が狂気、我が狂気をもて見解せよ。エクスはーうがてエクスプロージョン。
No matter how often I hear that sound, it never gets old.
No, it kind of doesn't. It's always of uniquely lovely.
I know, that cat dying.
Mm-hmm. Oh, it dies? It doesn't?
No, it's alive. It's playing dead, but that's what I mean. It's doing a death call.
That's funny. I love it. And speaking things that I love, please welcome one of my favorite guests. Please welcome Carl Saylor, the reincarnation of Karl Marx.
I am returned from urgent party congress.
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Alrighty. Well, I think that we will start with Tarek and then go to Carl Saylor, and then as people kind of filter in, we'll go with that. Sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
Sounds good to me. All right, so a quick recap of last time. Aviana was able to find an inn to sleep in for the night. She was able to bathe herself for her journey today to the Mages College. And where we left off, she was just kind of eavesdropping on a bunch of black scholars talking about stuff going on in the world. And now we find her having breakfast because we had an early day last time. All right. Aviana picked up her scrambled eggs with her hand and ate them as quickly as possible, not caring who saw her do it. She hated eggs. The flavor never agreed with her, but she was hungry and she wasn't one to waste food, nor money. Once those were done, she took a quick drink of her cider to drown the taste of eggs out, the two flavors melding and canceling each other out. Once she put her mug down, she turned her attention to the sausage and began to drool slightly as she savored the smell of smoked meat. She picked up a piece and tore off the end of it. The sausage's skin was a little crispy, but the bite delivered a burst of flavor that slightly stung her tongue as she tasted the pepper it was cooked in. She shoved the sausage into her mouth, tearing it apart and chewing as quickly as she could, not wanting the flavor to leave. However, this proved to be a mistake. The pepper flavor began to overwhelm her tongue, making her face scrunch up, requiring her to take a deep gulp of cider. The warm drink helped to drown out the burning sensation and replaced it with the same sweet, refreshing one. She put the cup down and sighed in relief before taking another sausage and repeating the process. By the time she was finished, there wasn't a scrap of food left on the wooden plate, and the scholars, as well as two of the other sailors, were giving her disgusted looks. She ignored them and jumped out of her chair and walked to the exit of the tavern, opening the door and stepping outside. A cool wind blew gently into her face, causing her long black hair to dance in the wind. She took in a deep breath and exhaled, her breath visible. Despite knowing it was freezing, it was as though her body didn't notice the cold today. All she could feel was her heart aflutter with excitement and the smile on her lips that just wouldn't leave. She was about to begin walking to the bridge when she noticed Merrick coming towards her. Unlike the day before, Merrick's clothing looked a lot cleaner, although It appeared that some stains had resisted the washing. His face was clear of dirt and grime. In doing so, it revealed some blossoming golden facial hair. Couldn't you have at least tried to wash your clothing? Merrick asked, looking her over. Merrick, we're just going to deliver a letter. We're not sitting down for tea, Aviana replied with a laugh as the two of them walked towards the bridge. We're going to the noble quarter, Aviana. There's a decorum that's expected, Merrick countered. Once across the bridge, they were greeted with the sight of shops and apartments lining the street. Unlike the buildings in the trade district or the wards, these buildings were made out of brick, with shingle roofing all the same red color, and every one of them had a brick chimney peeking out of the roof. Also, unlike the trade district, people were walking around were dressed with much more finesse. Women with silk dresses of all different colors, valuable gemstones embedded in earrings and necklaces, men wearing the finest wool, and even cotton clothing in royal colors, some of them with their house crest embroidered onto the shirt, and buttons made out of gold or silver, and pants that fit tightly around their waist and fit their body shape. Aviana looked at herself and then Merrick, realizing just how much they stood out. It wasn't long before she noticed that many of the wandering nobles were staring at them in bewilderment, if not in outright disgust. Aviana turned her head as she noticed that Merrick's face was red with embarrassment, or maybe shame. He increased his walking speed, causing Aviana to do the same. The two of them reached the center of the district. It was a circle with roads going in each of the four directions. In the center of the circle was a large marble fountain, with water endlessly spilling from a large bowl in the center. Standing above the bowl was a statue of a man, intricately carved and lifelike. It looked as though someone had painted a real person white and placed them on the fountain as the figure piece. The man had a handsome face with a well-trimmed beard around his chin and cheeks, and wore an ornately carved robe. The man's left hand was open, facing up, with his arm extended to the east. The man's right hand was facing down, with the arm extended, reaching to the west. Aviana looked at the statue and cocked her head as nobles passed by. She could hear a few of them making rude comments, but was too busy looking at the statue to care. I heard Tyrion commissioned that work himself, Merrick said, straightening his posture as he looked up at the statue. Where did you hear that? Aviana asked. I overheard someone in the Masons Guild talking about it. They said the artist was paid with more riches than most men could ever dream of. He was already rich, but it had cost him almost everything he had just to construct it, so much so that he had to live in squalor during its creation. Aviana turned her head to Merrick, shock painted on her face. How could a statue cost that much? Aviana questioned. Well, from what I heard, it's because there's not a single impurity in the marble. It took the mining guild forever to find, and even then they needed the alchemist union to transmute and purify it. After that, they had to hire the black scholars to help with the mathematics to make the statue. Finally, they literally had to demolish several buildings around the district in order not to block the horizon, Merrick replied. Why in Tyrion's name would they destroy buildings just for a statue? Aviana asked in shock. Supposedly they did it because that it wouldn't block the horizon. That way, in the morning, if you look at the right angle, you can see Tyrion lift the sun. Then if you view it from the opposite angle in the evening, it appears as though he's making it set, Merrick answered. Did King Tyrion help pay for it? Aviana asked. No, the artist paid for the entire thing himself. It's supposedly the most expensive statue ever built, Merrick replied. Aviana took a closer look at the statue, trying to see what made it so important, but after a moment shrugged. I don't get it. Leave it to rats from the wards not to understand something as simple as art, a passing noble commented as he walked past the two of them. Aviana let out a whimper and turned her head upwards, looking towards the mage tower, as it loomed over them in the district. She clenched her fist, digging her nails into her palm. Come on, she said aggressively, taking Merrick's hand and dragging him behind her. Unlike the wards or trade district, the noble district wasn't a confusing mess of streets and intersections. The cobblestone road they followed was the cobblestone road they followed west was the only road they saw, and it was lined with the same brick-made homes and shops they saw when they had entered. It didn't take long before the two of them arrived at the ivory wall of the college and its large iron gates. The college gates were guarded by 2 men wearing steel plate armor with swords in their sheaths attached to their hips and a green hood over their heads. They were armored from head to toe with greaves, boots, and gauntlets. In their hand, they held very sharp-looking halberds, their polished metal reflecting the light from the sun. The only difference between the two was that the guard on the left had a light brown beard, while the one on the right had a square face and looked much meaner. Aviana and Merrick slowly approached slowly when suddenly there was a loud clang as their halberds met, causing Aviana to jump in surprise. She noticed that the sound had caused Merrick to flinch, yet he still stood firm, his expression unflinching. Aviana gulped, staring up at the 2 significantly taller men, noticing that her head only came up to about their chests. She was about to turn away when she felt a hand placed on her back. When she looked, she saw Merrick giving her a small nod before gently pushing her towards the guards, as a nervous sweat dripped down her forehead. "Start your business," the bearded guard said. Sorry, I did that wrong. "Start your business," the bearded face guard announced, looking down at her somewhat curious. Aviana gulped as her heart raced. Both of them were looking down at her now. "I'm here to deliver a letter to Mikhail. A mage named Tarek Pranka asked me to deliver it to him," she announced, her voice trembling and her body shaking as the guards leered down at her. "I see, and your name?" the square-faced guard inquired. My name is Aviana, sirs," she answered meekly, but as politely as she could. "You expect us to believe that a mage sent a civet here to deliver a letter? It sounds like the beginning of a joke," the bearded guard said, doing nothing to hide his amusement. The square-faced guard looked outright displeased and spat on the ground at the utterance of the word civet. Aviana whimpered and slowly pulled out the letter from her cloak pocket and raised it, showing the back so they could see the seal. "I swear, sirs, he did. He also told me to show you this seal when I got here," she replied. The bearded guard's armor clanked as he walked over and took the letter in his hand and flipped it over. It's Tarek's handwriting, all right. It does have the House Pranka's seal. I was with her last night when Lord Pranka gave her the letter. I assure you, she is being honest," Merrick said confidently, looking up at the 2 guards. "And you are?" the square-faced guard asked. "I am Merrick of House Justin, sir," Merrick replied, bowing. The bearded guard looked over at the square-faced one, who then nodded. And then the bearded guard gave Aviana back the letter. "Very well, I will take you to see Mikhail. However, your companion will have to wait here," the guard said. Merrick nodded in agreement. The square-faced guard tapped the shaft of his halberd against the stone street, and the large iron gate swung open silently. The bearded guard walked through the gate, gesturing for Aviana to follow. She followed him through the gates, her nerves causing her to move slowly. As soon as she cleared the gates, the gates behind them closed. The moment Aviana walked into the courtyard, her mouth went agape. The entire area felt much warmer than anywhere else in the city at this time of year, as though it was a cool spring day instead of the middle of winter. Instead of snow and ice covering the grounds, there were flower beds of various shapes and colors and healthy-looking grass surrounding the stone walkways. There were also marble benches that sat at several points along the path, each with intricate designs in the stone. She also noticed several of the other buildings that normally couldn't be seen due to the college's wall. On her left, the path led to a large rectangular building made of marble and pillars surrounding the structure. Not far away from that was a building made entirely of clear glass and wood. She could see through the glass what appeared to be crops, flowers, and other plants growing inside. To her right, the path led to a large circular building, also made of marble, that looked somewhat like a giant arena. Finally, in the far back of the grounds behind the Mage's Tower sat the only building that looked like the ones in the Wards of Trade District. They were simple buildings made of wood and stone and looked out of place compared to the other buildings. However, the thing that caught Aviana's eyes the most was a giant tree with green magnolias that sat in a large circular patch of grass. This tree was so big it almost covered the entire walkway that circled around it. As they circled the path around the tree, she noticed that the flowers on the tree's limbs were giving off an earthly glow, not entirely dissimilar to the one the tower gave off every so often. The air around the tree felt somewhat charged and heavy, similar to the way the air felt last night when Tarek had performed. The oddest thing about the tree was that it was pulsing with a green light. With a green light around it. And it looked as though it was breathing, with the magnolias being the brightest part. She had seen magnolias like this before. They normally bloomed every 5 years and foretold of Tyrion's return, and quickly died after his departure. However, she had never seen the magnolias grow like this, grow from a tree before. Normally, they just grew out of the ground in the fall. Without thinking, she slowly started to walk off the path towards the tree, but was stopped when the guard put his halberd out, blocking her. "Stay on the path," the bearded guard ordered sternly. "Sorry, I've just never seen anything like this," Aviana replied, still staring at the tree. The guard turned his head and walked towards the tower, which sat at the end of the path, as she followed behind him. Standing under the tower's shadow, she realized just how insignificant she was compared to it. From where she was standing, she couldn't even see the top of it. Even the large U-colored doors were several times her height. She also noticed that the exterior of the tower was decorated with pillars, but more interestingly were the arches that were carved into the tower. Standing under the arches were large statues of men and women wearing traditional mage robes and standing in various poses. While the statues weren't as lifelike as the one of Tyrion, she assumed they were still fairly impressive. The guard led Aviana through the U-doors into a large foyer. The foyer was massive, with its giant marble ceiling hanging overhead. Large wheel-like metal chandeliers that were chained to the ceiling, all of which had lit wax candles. On the sides of the foyer were braziers that followed a red carpet that stretched from the entrance to the other side of the tower. As the two walked through the hall, Aviana noticed several tapestries hanging from the arches. She didn't know anything about sewing, but she could guess that the thread used in them was every bit as expensive as they was beautiful. Each tapestry had a picture and appeared to be telling a different story. One had an image of what appeared to be Tyrion shaking hands with a man in a black cloak. She assumed it was probably the founder of the Black Scholars. There was another where Tyrion was placing a crown atop a man's head with what looked to be like Carsley Castle behind them. Finally, there was another that showed Tyrion presenting a white glowing sword to a man who was kneeling before him. As they approached the end of the foyer, she saw a large painting on the back wall. It was so big that it nearly took up the entire northern wall. It was full of people, each one of them with a dignified expression on their face. All of them had a green aura surrounding them, making them look somewhat unearthly. She recognized a few of the people in the paintings, such as Tyrion standing in the middle of all of them. There was a one-armed man standing on the right with an eye patch and a bushy black beard, who she recognized as Caligor. Oddly enough, the other figure she recognized was what looked like Tarek. However, the man had a well-groomed gray beard and hair, as opposed to Tarek's messy brown hair and stubble. She also noticed that some of the wall appeared unfinished, as there were several blank spots in it. She was about to walk closer when she felt something grab her arm. "This way," the god said, leading her through the wooden door on her left. The door led to a hallway with high walls that were also decorated with tapestries, paintings, and cases filled with various odd items that she didn't have time to look over, as the guard began to walking faster. When they came to the end of the hallway and crossed under another arch, they encountered a large stairs that circled and curved around the building. They appeared to be made of the same marble as the rest of the building. Torches aligned the walls as well as windows, letting both. Sorry, I think I fucked that up here. Okay, torches aligned the walls as well as windows, lighting the stairway. Mikhail spends most of his time in the library on the 4th floor, the god said aloud as he began to climb the steps. Aviana followed him, trying to keep up with the guard, but her shorter legs made it difficult. When she arrived at the wooden door that she assumed to be the 2nd floor, she could already feel her knees buckling, her calves throbbing in agony, and her lungs trying to collapse with every breath. When she reached the 4th floor, she was leaning against the wall, panting, sweat dripping down her forehead and staining her shirt. Her hair had gotten sticky as her long black bangs clung to her eyes. Her chest was heaving. She felt as though she was going to vomit. "What's the matter with you?" the god asked. I've never climbed so many stairs in my life," Aviana replied, panting without looking up at the guard. You'd never make it as a mage, then, the guard said, laughing. What do you mean? Aviana said, still panting. The mages have to climb these stairs every day, and there are about 50 floors in this tower. I couldn't even begin to tell you how many fights I've had to break up due to a student trying to take another student's room on a lower floor. Aviana said nothing as she caught her breath. She swallowed the vomit in her throat as the thought of climbing these steps each day made her sick. After a few moments, she stood up and fixed her hair, pushing her bangs out of her eyes, and composed herself. You all right? The guard asked, sounding more polite than genuine. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir, she said, taking another deep breath. Okay, I'm ready now. The guard slowly opened the door, and Aviana's eyes widened as the door revealed rows upon rows of dark wooden bookshelves filled with scrolls, books, and other papers on their shelves. She tilted her head upward and noticed just how massive the room was. She could see that the lofts in the upper 3 floors were just as densely packed with bookshelves. The marble beneath them had a purple rug leading from the door to the center of the room. In the center, she could see what appeared to be a large area filled with wooden tables and seats, as well as a marble staircase and banisters leading from the center of the room to the other lofts overhead. What is this place? She asked, unsure what to focus her attention on. This is the Library of Tyrion, the guard answered with pride. And I think I'll leave it there for this week.
Okay. I'm definitely getting a Discworld vibe from this.
The class warfare is strong in this one.
Say what?
The class warfare is strong in this one. Conspicuous consumption with the statue.
What about consumption?
Conspicuous consumption.
It's weird because I've only read the first Discworld book, but I did see the CD-ROM game that they had, and I guess subconsciously I was inspired specifically by the library they have, because that thing is just fucking massive. But the whole thing, like specifically with the statue, is I just kind of wanted to show what these people are willing to do when God tells them to do something, like the lengths they will go to make sure God is happy.
Nice. I think like one thing that I kind of just noticed, like at least it's not the Dungeons and Dragons movie wizard school.
No, these people are so up their own fucking ass.
Yeah, clearly. 1 second pause. We'll resume, but first I need to bring in our Eldritch Cat Dragon mutant god thing. No, the other one.
I think that's our resident sage.
Mm-hmm. You're muted, Valerian.
I was saying, clearly you have me all figured out.
Well, you're an Eldritch Cat Dragon demon thing.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much Bright Lord, beings, minions.
I actually like that so much. I actually changed my name to Bright Lord Amanda Dunn on the Discord.
I was just noticing that.
Yeah. Very, very, very good name. I will take it.
Very apropos.
Yeah.
We are
I'm
vampires.
still hanging on to Commissar myself.
We are vampires. We don't even know what that means. I love that. I love Hondo Anaka. Hondo Anaka is the best line.
Oh, he did. This venture is no longer profitable, as he just fucks off.
I guess this is another anime.
No, this is
Wars.
yeah, this is Clone Wars.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Well,
Same thing, probably.
Well, Balerion has to be our sage. I can't be the sage.
Well, yeah.
I'm the fearless leader who kind of sucks at his job sometimes. Tarek's the comic relief. Wolf's the lancer. Neph's the token female.
I have one.
That's brightness enough to you.
Yeah, brightness Neph.
Yeah, I have to call her brightness from now on.
Now I just need to change her nick. Now, and one of the perks of being the Lord of the Bright Lord of the Discord is I can change anybody's nickname.
But presumably you make sure she doesn't hate being called brightness enough first.
Well, if she does like it, I can change it back later.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, so
Well, yes.
He taught people division. Of course, he is the education king. He was just educating people who had already been educated.
Well, not to mention, what does he say? He says, teach her, Marin. Teach her. Teach. Teach. What could be more obvious?
Of course, he is the education king. He is the sociopathic, butterball, floppy-haired king. Yeah,
He's just above your morality, that's all.
clearly, yes. Yeah, I have that power. I can make anybody's name anything on the Discord. It's the power of being the creator of the Discord. I have so many powers.
I've got so many powers.
Oh,
So,
the way you were saying that, though, Sailor, I was gonna say, oh, it's so gosh, because I thought you were doing German for a minute.
So gosh. It's
so gosh. So last year.
how OP can you get?
Okay, is it my turn next then?
I believe it is, yes.
All right. So, I've been hyping up this fan fiction about young Jadis from Charn, from the Chronicles of Narnia. And I'm not going to be able to complete it this time, but I will get as far as I can before we stop. So, here we go. This is a tale of young Jadis, a high and lonely destiny. Princess! A voice breaks the stillness of night. Princess Jadis, are you awake? My eyes open in the darkness. I have not slept. Have you made preparations for the journey, slave? I have, princess, the voice whispers in response. We may depart as soon as you desire. Then let us make haste, I say, rising from my bed. With a soft pulse of magic, a glowing orb flickers to life before me to illuminate the bedchamber of the crown princess of Charn. I do not pause to dwell upon the fabulous luxury of the scene. Such things are commonplace to my refined sensibilities. And in any case, time is the fleetest foe of all. I turn to the slave girl who has roused me. She nods, clearly comprehending my will, and proceeds to fetch suitable garments from my wardrobe. Here I must regrettably contain my magnificence. Our errand is one of speed and stealth, and so luxury and opulence, while appropriate to my station, must be set aside. I watch in the standing mirror as my slave girl garbs me in a simple dark silk gown and a traveling cloak. Dreadfully common garments, yet I must temper my pride and bear it with grace and poise befitting a princess. Before we depart, I permit myself one item of luxury. My slave girl produces a fabulous gemstone, smooth and red like a drop of blood, and bound in gold upon a black velvet band. I observe my reflection as the slave girl places the elegant jewel about my neck and clasps it shut. This is no mere bauble. It is the heart of the scion, the mark of of my place as heir to the throne of Charn. Out of all my jewels, this one is the most precious, for if it is lost or stolen, then I shall possess no clear evidence of my rightful claim to the throne. With all now prepared, we emerge from my bedchamber and into the tight stone corridors of the great palace of Charn. The red eye of the sun has set, draping the halls in indelible curtains of shadow. The orb of light still floats above my palm, yet its feeble illumination reaches barely a few paces ahead in the lingering gloom. Still, it shall serve. I set off along the way, with my slave girl following obediently after. Through the veins of the palace we glide like ghosts, down long promenades, past closed sealed doorways, through hidden passages. Not a soul do we encounter upon our way, and the only sound that dares disturb the stillness of night is the soft tap of footfalls and the hushed whisper of skirts gliding over stone. Yet even this small sound stirs a sense of unease and peril in my heart, for if my mission is uncovered, all shall surely be undone. After an uncertain stretch of time, perhaps minutes, perhaps hours, there emerges from out of the shadows a great stone archway into which is set a heavy door of iron and ebony. The entrance to the dungeons. Here my slave girl steps forth and produces a lantern, wrought of blackest onyx, and fashioned in the shape of a beastly claw clutching a glass vial. The slave girl pricks her finger on one of the claws and lets a stream of blood drip into the flask, whereupon a soft crimson flame flickers to life. My slave girl takes the lead as we proceed into the dungeon, and wisely so, for as I cross the threshold, powerful wards and counterspells take effect, and my orb of light vanishes. We press on down a narrow, twisting stairway, deeper and deeper into the depths. Eventually the walls vanish, revealing a vast chamber stretching out beyond sight into the gulf of darkness. The stairs wrap tightly about the central column like strangling vines about a tree as we descend to the dungeon floor. We do not hesitate even for a moment when we reach the root of the stairs. My slave girl knows the way. Our path takes us into a side passage, along a block of cells. I don't bother glancing at the sordid wretches imprisoned behind these iron bars. Such things are beneath my notice. Though my slave girl is not so nearly aloof. I cannot help but notice her gaze flitting from one cell to the next, doubtless considering each prisoner's fate. This one to the chopping block, that one to the torture chamber, this one to the sacrificial altar, that one simply left to starve in solitude. I can understand her unease, of course. My slave girl once languished within one of these very cells. Indeed, I am the sole reason she yet lives, for it was I who plucked her from mortal peril upon the chopping block, a royal command staying the headsman's axe in its deadly plunge. It is a well-known recipe for crafting only the most loyal of slaves. Her gratitude to me for lifting her from the jaws of death into a life of honored service is the tinder which kindles the eternal flame of loyalty in her bosom. For my own part, I must confess I have grown rather fond of this little slave girl of mine. I find little pleasures in indulging her simple desires, and entrust her with my confidence on a regular basis. Indeed, sometimes I forget for a moment the vast difference between our stations and count her almost as a friend. Alas, pleasant though her company is, I must not permit myself to grow overly attached to this precious little creature. She is, after all, nothing more than a slave, a valuable asset that must be made to serve her mistress's will above all else. I raise a hand to caress the jewel about my neck, reminding myself of what is truly important in the world. There may well come a day when I must sacrifice this dear companion of mine in order to attain some crucial advantage in the great game of power. And when that hour comes, I must not hesitate to pay the price of greatness. Mine is, after all, a high and lonely destiny. Finally, we reach the end of the procession of cells and come to a deep pool of dark water. A small stair leads down to a low stone wharf reaching out across the black glassy surface, where two flat-bottomed boats are secured. I take a seat in one of the boats while my slave girl unfastens the moorings and hangs the blood lantern above the bow, and finally pushes off from the wharf with oar in hand. The slender boat glides gracefully across the glass-smooth water and into a long, dark tunnel. The River of Woe, a hidden subterranean canal that links the palace dungeons with the great river of Charn. It was intended as an emergency measure to foil a siege or effect a swift escape under duress. But 100,000 years of glorious conquest have rendered this purpose terribly obsolete. The most common use it sees nowadays throughout the ages is to transport high-born prisoners to the place of execution in the Grand Plaza without parading them through the streets like commoners. Tonight, however, it shall serve its intended purpose as a secret escape from the palace. At the end of the tunnel, we come upon a large steel portcullis. Ordinarily, this gate is kept lowered and tightly sealed, but tonight, a careful bribe and a secret royal command have left the heavy steel grate raised just enough for the boat to slide beneath it. As we pass under the iron teeth of the portcullis, like the maw of some ravening beast, I note, with supreme relief, that we have also passed beyond the reach of the dungeon wards and counterspells. My magic is mine once again. Just beyond the portcullis, the tunnel opens out upon the River of Charn. The entrance itself is carefully hidden beneath a bridge. To any passing observer, it would seem nothing more than a common sewer outlet. Deepest night reigns over the city. A sparse line of red lanterns standing sentry along the riverfront is the only illumination to be seen. The silhouettes of the vast temples, towers, and palaces and pyramids are concealed against the solid blackness of the heavens. Onward the boat glides, borne swiftly against the current by my subtle sorceries. My mission must not be delayed any longer. It all began 3 days ago, when my slave girl revealed to me an urgent secret from one of my sister's slaves. It seems that this wicked sister of mine has discovered a new fount of magical power. It is said to be a source of unspeakable might. Even if I were to strip away all the rest of my sister's magics, leaving only this new power, still I would be outmatched. That such a hideous strength should serve my sister, and not our own royal self, is simply unacceptable, and it shall not be permitted. To this end, I set my slave girl at once to a secret correspondence with this other slave, in order that she might learn as much as could be learned about the nature of this new power. Information was slow to come, but in the end she was able to learn where exactly the secret of this power was hidden, and it is thither that we are bound at this very moment. I must remember to devise a suitable prize for my slave girl for her diligence in my service. Such a bounty of knowledge should not go unrewarded. My sister's slave, the one who first delivered this crucial insight, shall need a reward as well, for much he risked in this regard. Had my sister uncovered his treachery, that poor slave would have been sent straight to the headsman, and that if he was lucky. I might possibly reward him by taking him into my service and shielding him from my sister's wrath. And yet, a slave who betrays one mistress may just as easily betray another. Perhaps it would be safer simply to have the man's head chopped off and call this whole business done. As to my sister herself, I can at least rest easy knowing that her fate is already sealed. Once our royal father dies, and I assume my rightful place as Queen of Charn and mistress of all that is and all that is to be, I shall have my sister put to death. It is a time-honored tradition of the great houses, and a proven means of avoiding usurpers, civil wars, crises of succession. Let my wretched sister plot and scheme as she desires. It shall not keep me from ordering her beheaded in the Grand Plaza, or strangled with a silk ribbon, or locked in a bedchamber with a stiletto or a goblet of poison. So many choices. Oh, I suppose if she begs, I may yet deign to spare her life. For a time. But this is a matter for the future. Once this new power is secure in my possession, there shall be ample time to arrange the details of my sister's execution. The lights on the riverbank march past, growing farther between as the boat slides further and further away from the city center. After a time, they vanish altogether, leaving only the flickering blood lantern at the prow to defy the darkness. We have passed beyond the city limits of Charn, into the wild lands between the great cities. Still we press on, undaunted by any pitiful darkness. My magic is more than sufficient to foil the beasts and demons that haunt these wild places. Any vile creature we encounter shall be put to a swift end. As the journey continues, I am more concerned with that which we do not encounter, for I see no slave barges upon the river. The great temples of Charn, always hungry for sacrificial offerings, demand ever greater hosts of slaves to feed the fires of magic. The cities upstream, having long since been made vassals in glorious conquest, are bound by royal command to send slaves as tribute to give their lives upon the sacrificial altars of Charn. And yet, these great slave barges have slowed in recent years. If this continues much longer, the pace of sacrifice may slacken in its growth, or perhaps even stagnate. Perhaps the rulers of those city-states have grown arrogant and think themselves unbound by obligation or loyalty. Perhaps a punitive expedition will set them right and remind them of their duties. The boat slows, and out of the darkness there emerges the dim outline of a narrow inlet flanked by two large cliff faces. My slave girl deftly maneuvers the boat between the stone sentries and into a tight gorge. The deep blackness of night is replaced by close walls of towering rock that dance like shadows in the flickering light of the blood lantern. The water is perilously shallow here. More than once the boat grinds over a sandbar lurking beneath the water's surface. At the end of the gorge, the boat finally grounds up upon the stony shore, and I dismount. I find myself now standing at the bottom of a large cliff upon which is carved a vast cyclopean symbol of the sort that one might find in those secret scrolls of sorcery locked away in the hidden vaults beneath the palace library. What the sigil means precisely I do not know, for those accounts are far too ancient to be read, but it is a welcome sign that the information which my slave girl uncovered was genuine. In the dim light and dancing shadows, I approach the stone mark and draw my finger along its twisting form while uttering a spell of unlocking. Sure enough, the wall obeys my command, and a great crack spreads out from the symbol and opens wide like a great yawning maw of blackness. I stride confidently into the dark doorway, my slave girl following dutifully after with the blood lantern. Beyond the doorway, a narrow stair leads downward into the cliff face. Here, as elsewhere in the kingdom of the night, darkness reigns, yet it is darkness of a different sort. Outside, the light from the blood lantern served to ward off the waiting void. Here, the shadows are aggressive, ravenous. Walls of black crystal greedily gobble up all the light. Indeed, they seem to draw closer as we descend deeper, deeper into the mountains, like a stalking predator. Still, I press further onward. I have come too far to be denied. Finally, after what seems like ages, the corridor opens upon a small chamber carved into the dark crystal. The room is circular, with the same low ceiling as the rest of the corridor. A large brazier sits empty and cold in the center of the chamber, and before this, there is a small seat. There are no exits to be seen, save the one from which we entered. Slowly I cross the chamber to the seat before the brazier, and place myself elegantly upon it. I have arrived at last. But what to? I'm busy smoothing a wrinkle out of my silk gown, when all of a sudden, the flame in the blood lantern splutters and dies, plunging the chamber into absolute blackness. An instant later, a blue flame bursts into being in the brazier before me, and in the twisting light of the fire, I see across the brazier a hooded black cloak. Long has it been since any mortal creature dared enter my domain. A voice wafts from out of the darkness beneath the hood. This mysterious form speaks with a voice like none I have ever heard. It is soft like the whispering winds, yet tremendous and unyielding as the mighty mountains. Sprightly as a dancing flame, yet placid as mist over a glassy pond. It is a man's voice, and a woman's voice. It is neither, and yet it is both. Surely this creature is a djinn, one of those hidden beings born of magic itself. I have come seeking a great power, I announce, with all the dignity of a queen. I have foreseen your coming, daughter of kings, the djinn says. You would claim my gift. Then it is true, I say, perhaps a little too eagerly. There is a great magic here? The greatest magic, the djinn says. Greater than all other magics in the universe. Greater than all others? Then this truly is the magic I was told of. And since no other soul has yet dared claim it, then my wretched scheming sister certainly does not yet possess it. This bodes most well. I must possess this magic. You shall give it to me. The djinn makes a curious sound, like a gust of air at the top of a towering spire. What can this noise mean? A laugh? A sigh? A howl of rage? Who can say with a djinn? And yet, as I listen, I can perceive words hidden within the sound. You who seek to ascertain the power that I keep, 2 prices must be paid before my magic may be shown. The second price you first must pay, and bitterly shall weep. The first you shall pay after, willingly, and yet unknown. And I think we'll leave it there for the week.
Thank God he didn't have. Thank God he didn't have multiple slave girls. That would have gotten awkward.
Yes.
Very much so. Yeah,
Oh, yes.
I could definitely see I can definitely understand where you got these idea because this is a pretty good high quality fan fiction. Like as somebody who really likes The Magician's Nephew, and I definitely in like the djinn, all of the little references were very very excellent. Like the djinn, what she's trying to do, and even like little things of like ours is a high and lonely destiny.
It sounds more impressive when you're a 7-foot-tall empress of all the known world. You know, Uncle Andrew just can't pull it off. You know.
No, that's because Uncle Andrew is a useless moron who's trying to be Dr. Frankenstein and still failing.
Yeah.
He's over his head. The whole thing about when you kill your siblings at the rise of the throne, is that modeled on the Ottomans?
Well, I definitely got something from that. You know, this is very much a cutthroat nobility world.
Yeah, they're very cool.
It was. I've never read any of the Chronicles of Narnia stuff, but still, like the presentation alone was top tier. So, just
I really wanted to like drive home that this is a woman for whom life is worthless.
She's the best She's one of the best villains.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think like especially like in Magician's Nephew gives her a lot more depth.
Yes.
Because in the Lion Witch in the Wardrobe, she's just kind of, I guess, typical fantasy bad guy.
Yeah.
But
she's the evil queen, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah, she's the evil queen. But then when you get to Magician's Nephew, it's just like, no, this woman is really psychotic.
She's evil, but she's also admirable. You know, or at least maybe admirable is the wrong word.
In her own twisted way, perhaps.
Yes.
You got to admire her conviction, like to what she wants to do. I think that's what you mean.
Yeah, she wants to never die. And she does.
She I'm sorry, I'm finding the irony in that. She wants to never die, and it doesn't matter how many bodies there are at the end of the day, so long as she gets what she wants.
Yep.
Yeah. But she understands in a way that this is like destroying her. So she's, you know what I'm saying?
She deliberately destroys herself for immortality.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she understands that, whereas Uncle Andrew like hardly knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Becca. That's a good reference. Turkish delight.
Oh
So
yeah.
thing with her killing her sister when she assumes the throne. I imagine that's Turkish, but not so delightful.
Well, depending on point of view, for her it might be delightful, maybe not for the sister, but hey.
I think it depends on what part of Turkey you're from.
Yeah.
I need to have Turkish delight. Apparently it's pretty good. I'm not sure. Never had it.
Look, you have to sell your soul to get it, apparently.
Yeah, I'd never heard of Turkish delight before reading the Chronicles of Narnia, so that's put me on a sour note for it.
Well, that is true. That's how I found out about it. But admittedly, I was 3. Admittedly, I was 3 when I watched the animated Chronicles of Narnia movie.
Oh, the animated Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe.
I only saw the BBC versions.
Yeah, I saw that too. Yeah. Ooh, Tarek, would you like to come on for the Silver Chair commentary?
Oh, that was
you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
Oh, well, basically because the BBC is so, just doesn't actually care, they will let you watch it on stream.
That sounds wonderful. I'm always down for fun like that.
Yeah.
But the whole talk...
The ending has a blow-up snake doll.
Wait, was this like 60 BBC? Like when they could not give a fuck?
This is the 70s.
When they did not give a shit.
Yeah. It looks like a blow-up. It looks like a blow-up doll.
Yeah. Basically, the special effects are towards the primitive end of the spectrum.
I'm down. But what I was going to say was the whole talk of Turkish delight reminds me of Robot Chicken, because there was this one Chronicles of Narnia parody they did where the nerd guy is talking to the queen, rolls up after he kills Mr. Thomas, and she's going, "Oh my God, would you like to come to my castle for Turkish delight?" "Oh boy, I'm gonna get laid." Turkish delight is a candy. "Oh boy, candy."
Yeah,
I love Robot Chicken.
I think it's partially because A, they're old, B, nobody cares about them anymore. So the copyright box there are no copyright bots for it because it's so old at this point.
And BBC would be foolish to give a shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Alrighty. It is our newly minted Sagely Belarioft Curmudgeon. I just barely gave you your own personal role as you are the head of a cult, so
let's see, because I'm a bit AFK at the moment, unfortunately. Can you take a nice long turn and I come afterwards?
Sure. I can read.
Oh good. Sorry about that.
No worries. So this is from my upcoming novella, The Battle of the Seven Suns. I'm going to be reading the entire thing over the next few weeks. And it's just a novella. I'm not finished with it yet, but I will be. And I'm interested to hear your guys' feedback and thoughts as I work on this book, because I'm hoping that I'll be able to publish it by June. That's my hope, for probably around $2. X if you want to buy it. That seems reasonable for a novella of this length. So, The Battle of the Seven Suns. Chapter 1, The Prince's Arrival. So, for context, this is the first part of the arc, the second arc of the Dragonlord Annals, where in the last book, the land has been devastated by a civil war, and it was repaired by Darien the Peacemaker and Odin Whitehand. And a lot of the dragons that were alive during the time of Aemond, the progenitor of this particular dynasty of dragon riders, have died. And now it's the next generation that are kind of taking up the mantle. And right now, a civil war is a rebellion in Sitharis, which is kind of like medieval fantasy India with elephants and such, has arisen because they were conquered a while back by the Dragonlords, and now the Dragonlords are fighting to try and maintain control of all of the area. So that's pretty much the context that you need to understand what is going on. Also, the orcs are I hope that this will give some context for why there are orcs fighting for the Dragonlords as opposed to being the bad guys. Of course I can read. I'm literate. I can write, after all. Chapter 1. A Prince's Arrival. Ellipsos was safe, save for the sounds of merchantmen working on their crafts for the following morning. Wiping his dark, leathery brow free of sweat, Torash placed the practice axe on the wall, then nodded to his sparring partner, another orc named Urgast. His hide was significantly more pale than Torash, likely because as his blood flowed with the cave dwellers rather than the tree-born like Torash. So, how'd I do? Torash asked, picking up his actual axe and strapping it to his back along with his long curved scimitar. Shrugging, Urgast grabbed his Karzar sword from where he'd set it. The weapon was shaped like a T with a pair of spikes as opposed to a tip and a broad blade designed for hacking through the enemy. Torash had rarely seen anybody of Urgast's age bearing a weapon of the Gorjad Barznul, or they that walk with death. However, the grizzled orc had at least a dozen dragon's head tattoos running up his bare arms and augmenting his armor, one for each battle he'd lived through. Despite the Gorjad Barznul being frontline berserker warriors, somehow through a combination of luck and skill, Urgast had fought his way through over a dozen battles and come out the other side. For that, he'd earned Torash's respect. You fight with too much restraint, he said calmly, strapping his sword to his back. Your swings are like an old fish, and your slow hits show that you're getting too old for this. The dry tone belied the twinkle in the grizzled orc's eye. Torash bared his fangs in a smile and punched his friend affectionately on the arm. You old bear, he laughed, always free with your compliments. Urgast returned the grin and punched him back. I'm glad you actually understand my methods of communication, he said. All these young pups that I've been training when I'm off duty from guarding little Princess Heron get prickly. They're just pups being pups, Torash chuckled. I'm glad that I mostly get to plan battles rather than training the new recruits. Urgast rolled his eyes disparagingly. All that bureaucracy and babble bores me. He rolled his shoulders. Give me a good training day with the most prickly pups before that. At least I can pound out my frustration with steel. You'll never change. Torash shook his head in mock exasperation. Not too old and too scarred. Urgast shrugged and stumped out of the training yard. How's guard duty treating you? Torash asked. Seems like the perfect job for an old war dog like you. It's about as entertaining as watching kittens fight. Urgast shrugged. Hera and her brother often spar. There's no bloody need for me to be there. They're not going to hurt each other. Yeah, it's a good thing she's a dragon rider in waiting, Torash grimaced, taking a long drink of his wineskin. She's such a tiny thing. She is still fierce for all that. Urgast slipped his hand into his pack and pulled out a stack of red meat and started munching down on it. Hopefully we'll be able to quell this latest rebellion soon. I don't know, now that the Satharans have dragons of their own, it will be a difficult fight, Torash grinned eagerly. Now that there's more of a fight, we can truly prove our steel. Urgas nodded grimly. When our ancestors fought without dragons supporting our troops, we weren't as soft as we are now. The grizzled veteran nodded to an orc patrol walking across the street from them. You're definitely not soft. Torash clapped his old friend on the shoulder. I don't think I've ever met a harder fighter than you. I'm not half as hard as my grandfather or great-grandfather. Urgas grimaced, rubbing his tattooed arm. Fighting with the dragons on our side has turned us soft. We're winning. Inning. But we're not testing ourselves. Better a winner than a dead orc. Torash shrugged. Urgas' grimace deepened, but he remained silent as they walked into the main castle. A single dragon, black Catastros, perched on the walls, the enormous black dragon's golden eyes surveying the area coolly. Meles was off hunting, so Prince Onan would not have his dragon with him during this council. Despite his remarks regarding the dragons, Torash was glad to have two of the biggest dragons in the realm on their side, especially two veterans like Catastros and Meles. Both had been through dozens of battles during their time, Meles more so than Catastros, but the black dragon's size made him just as dangerous as his mate. How many dragons do you think the enemy has? No idea. Torash adjusted his gauntlets and rolled his shoulders. Based on our scout reports, they have 2 or 3 middling dragons. Catastros and Meles might be able to. A sudden roar announced a third dragon, this one a large, vicious-looking red and black creature flying above them. Oh, damn it, Torash grimaced, rubbing his eyes. Crown Prince Narcissus is here with his dragon Meraxia. How had that little turd managed to bond with the most vicious of all the dragons? It made no sense to Torash. Urgas rolled his eyes. Little bastard, he muttered. It's fortunate his sister isn't old enough to inherit. I prefer Prince Typhon. I honor either of his children before him. Maybe he's changed in the past 3 years since this campaign. Torash couldn't even finish that sentence without wanting to gag. Urgas didn't bother restraining his snarl of disapproval. The filthy, arrogant Sotokrat Gazni Vazul. He lapsed into Orcish when his anger got the better of him. Shaking his head, Torash walked into the castle just as the prince himself dismounted. Ah, General! The Narcissus said, his wide, foppish grin and punchable face completely unchanged in 3 years. I do so hope the battle hasn't ended already, he remarked, resting his hand on Darkfire's hilt. Me and Meraxia will be sure to eviscerate those damned rebels. You arrived just in time, Highness. Torash put on a grin despite internally groaning. If he has Darkfire, the sword of the king, then the Dragonlord is close to death. Urgas made a disapproving noise and walked past the prince without saying anything. Bloody insolent! Torash Narcissus wriggled into his nose. I should have him whipped. Meraxia growled as if she were sensing her rider's annoyance, but she halted before he could do anything rash. He's your cousin's bodyguard. He's somewhat out of your reach, Torash said mildly. Oh. Narcissus sounded profoundly disappointed that punishment wasn't going to be meted out. Why don't we meet with your uncle and discuss our plans for putting down the Satharans? Torash gently but firmly put his hand on the prince's shoulder and started guiding him toward the castle. Prince Cronin and his 2 children, Hera and Carlian, were waiting in the map room, all 3 looking rather surprised and quite unhappy. Happy to see the Crown Prince show up. What the hell are you doing here? Hera asked bluntly, resting her hand on her sword hilt. The sapphire pommel of the ancient blade of Mariel Dragon's Bane glittered. The silver quillions and shimmered with an ethereal light. All four of them had silver hair and light eyes, though Hera had somehow developed bright violet eyes, as had her brother. The eyes weren't the only thing different. Hera had not inherited the usual Dragonlord height. Quite the contrary. She was extremely tiny. Carleon had inherited the height along with the six-fingered hand that sometimes affected his bloodline. Along with his silver hair, Narcissus had, other than his silver hair, Narcissus had nothing in common with them. He was thin and wiry, much like his sire, the Dragonlord. By contrast, Prince Cronin looked every inch the Dragonlord warrior. Impressive height, strong jaw, close-cropped beard. Judgment hung at his side, as opposed to his back, where a shorter man would put it. Clearly offended, Narcissus puffed up like an offended rooster. I am here to help you win. How? Carleon asked bluntly, which caused Urgas and the other guards to start chuckling. Because I'm going to give you an edge, Narcissus declared. With me on the field, you can put Meles and Catastros to use killing the others, while I get the glory of destroying their armies with Meraxia. And this is a good idea. Why? Carleon prodded. Tarash was wondering the exact same thing. Because it'll make better use of you, Narcissus protested. It's the wisest choice. When everybody gave him dubious looks, he flinched. And Lady Stellaris is coming with Medea and 20,000 more soldiers to assist the conquest. Uh-huh. Probably should have led with that one. Hera rolled her violet eyes. Why are you putting yourself forward like this? This might be the first time I've ever seen you take any measure of initiative in... She trailed off before continuing. Oh, the entirety of your existence. I have to act like the crown prince, don't I? Narcissus countered. I had to prove I'm worthy once his teeth snapped together before he's finished talking. Cronin's eyes narrowed. Is my brother dying? He asked flatly. Narcissus sounded distinctly uncomfortable. It's not that serious. I just wanted to prove myself. The skeptical looks caused him to wilt noticeably. Just in case. Just in case. Hera exchanged a look with her father and brother. So how do we get rid of him so that nobody notices? She asked. I say we kill him and you take his dragon, Carleon remarked, tone dry as well. Tone dry as an old well. Narcissus paled noticeably. Be nice, you two, Cronin chuckled. Just because he's a bit of an ass doesn't mean we can tease him too much. Nah, Hera shook her head, unable to hide a wide smile. It's way too much fun. You're not as funny as you think you are, Narcissus pouted. Everyone else thought it was. Carleon grinned and shrugged unconcernedly. So you're trying to prove you're not a failure by fighting in a bunch of pointless battles before your father dies of whatever he's suffering from. What is my brother suffering with? Cronin put in. My father is suffering from some kind of malignant pox, Narcissus said primly. We assume that he caught it from one of those prostitutes he keeps frequenting. Face creased in a grimace. Cronin put his hands to his temples and started rubbing them. Why does that not surprise me? He groaned. I keep telling him over and over again he should either stop or get them washed so he doesn't catch some kind of disease. Narcissus grimaced. This is beside the point, he said flatly. We need to crush this rebellion, and the sooner the better. Cronin rubbed his eyes once, then fixed them on his nephew. Let's just get this perfectly clear. I don't care if you're the crown prince and a dragon rider, but when you go out into the battle, Hera will be your commanding officer. He pointed toward his short daughter. If you argue, I will throw you out and get someone able to follow orders. Narcissus' mouth worked like a fish as Hera gave him a flat, if satisfied look. But no. But, boy, Cronin's voice was cold. Am I understood? The Crown Prince's mouth kept on working. Torash was having a very hard time not bursting out laughing. Prince Cronin was keeping his face impassive, but his children weren't hiding their smiles. Hera especially had a very wide grin. Drawing himself to his full height, Cronin towered over his nephew and glared down at him. Am I making myself clear, nephew? The large man rested his hand on Judgment's hilt, the enormous greatsword's wooden hilt shimmering slightly. Crystal! Narcissus squeaked. Satisfied, Cronin leaned backward and looked down at the map. At the moment, we have a great deal of work to do before we can consider Satharis pacified. He began moving some figurines around the map. Currently, our scouts have reported 4 enemy dragons, and we haven't been able to close and engage with them. Neither have we been able to fully engage with any of their armies since they evacuated their castles. The problem is that they know they don't have to engage us to win. All they need to do is raid our supply lines and use hit-and-run tactics while hiding in the jungle. Then we burn forests, Narcissus shrugged. Do you realize how big and inflammable these forests are? Hera demanded. We get monsoons every month this time of year, and in the hotter months, it's every other month. The amount of dragon fire needed to burn them out with would be immense. Another issue is that we don't know where their army is. So seeing as we have the largest dragons in the area, as soon as we move, they will know where we are. They could move and prepare artillery for us, and then shoot our dragons out of the sky. What would happen if we fall through that plan? All through with that plan is abject failure. What we need to do is draw them out with a tempting target, force them to commit, and then destroy them. Carly unfolded his arms. We've already pulled all the food and resources out of the outlying cities and focused them here so that we can keep our army going while they can't live on their own lands. We've been trying to starve them out and force them into the field. They must have some kind of resource in the forest that allow them to keep going since they refuse to do more than send out razors. Then we beat them at their own game, Narcissus blurted. We send raiders of our own into the forest. We've tried that already. Carleon raised his eyebrows. The first few months of the hide-and-seek part of the war were he lost nearly 400 scouts and raiders trying to flush them out. They know the terrain better than us, especially since the jungle is so thick you can get turned around only a half-mile in. It sounds like you're failing at your job, Narcissus declared, resting his hand on her sword. What have you done? Mind your tone. Cronin narrowed his eyes. Narcissus wilted, then drew himself up. What have you been doing to further the war? He continued, but his tone was significantly more respectful. Nodding as if his nephew had said nothing disrespectful, Cronin nodded to Carleon. The younger man returned the nod and began moving the figurines representing the Satharis rebels into the forest area of the map. We have quarantined a large portion of them here, he explained. We have multiple checkpoints, a dual set of walls, and siege engines that we've constructed in order to keep the enemy corralled in the forest. The benefit of having a forest close to us is the nearly unlimited amount of timber to use in creating the buildings and catapults. All of the major cities have been occupied and their resources redistributed as plunder and consistent pay for the troops. The Crown doesn't have to worry about us draining its coffers, since we have consistent trade and tariffs going out of the countries east of Satharis, as well as Parthia and Harag. So, how do we win? Narcissus asked. With difficulty, Urgast muttered, clearly disgusted at the proceedings. Hera rested her hands on the table. We figure out how they are getting supplies and support, and so we can choke them off, she said simply. Right now, we have to figure out where their supply lines are. Tunnels, maybe? Narcissus suggested. Maybe the scheming bastards prepared for this far in advance. Torash rolled his eyes. A conspiracy theory that ludicrous would be laughed out of the council room. From his place with the other bodyguards, Urgast seemed about to give the prince a tongue lashing, but Hera gave the grizzled orc a look that said to remain silent. Instead of guffawing, as that idiotic notion deserved, the other silver-haired royals all exchanged look, then promptly started nodding. Maybe, Cronin stroked his beard. The one question that needs to be answered is how they got the equipment and where the entrances are. Why don't you go look for them? Hera asked sweetly. Such an important task needs to be overseen by the Crown Prince. Narcissus preened slightly and drew himself up. That's right, he nodded. Urgas exchanged skeptical looks on Urgas, who seemed on the verge of an outburst. Abruptly, he seemed to remember something. Ah, one moment. He reached into his pocket and handed a couple letters to Hera. Aunt Asteria told me to give you these just before I left. Well, why don't you go now? Oh. Hera raised an eyebrow before, as she accepted the letters and pocketed them. I think I could and give you about a score of men to work on the project, this important project. Torash knew what the letters were, but he made no comment. Hera was able to control her face admirably for a human, but to an orc all the signs of joy were there. We'll entrust you to them to your command in the morning, Cronin decided. Now, why don't you get food? You must be hungry. Of course. Narcissus smiled and strutted. Actually strutted away. Yelling toward whatever students were employed there to tell him where the kitchens were. Finally, Carleon rolled his eyes. Why is that man here? His dragon provides him with with quite a bit of unfortunate leverage, I imagine. Hera remarked, stroking the pommel of Silver Queen's hilt. We need to keep him occupied so we can actually get work done. Casually, Hera turned her head to nod to Orash. Well done keeping a straight face, General, she said approvingly. It must have been quite the task. Thank you, Your Highness, Torash smiled and nodded. This young peacock is going to be more trouble than he's worth. He barely even noticed you, Carleon shook his head disparagingly. You're a war hero, a veteran, and a respected commander. Torash shrugged. I care what those I respect think of me, my lord. He folded his large arms across his bulky chest. Whatever happens, I stand ready to march when you say march and follow your orders to the letter. We know, Cronin put his hand on Cronin's shoulder. Tall as the big man was, Torash was half a head taller and half again as wide. You've done well, old friend, and I trust you completely. Hera nodded in agreement. If only the prince had your reliability and courage, she remarked, clasping her hands behind her back. Rolling her eyes, she shook her head. Tunnels, she scoffed. Bloody tunnels. Carleon rolled his eyes, but his attention went to the maps. He is somewhat correct, though, he admitted. There must be some secret means by which they're securing their supplies. Despite the completion of the wall, they've maintained themselves. Probably large stores of food and livestock hidden within the woods, Hera suggested. I don't think he properly assessed how much time and effort it would take to build tunnels across Satharis. If they had gotten some dwarven miners down onto the south a decade ago, I might consider it, but the rebellion has only lasted a few years. This is a rather hard stone to crack, Torash agreed. Burning the woods would likely create problems that we're not equipped to deal with. And attempting to push into the forest with all our force would limit our movements and our ability to fully unleash our dragons without risking them to hidden ballista fire, or worse, destroying our own troops. Perhaps, Hera put her finger to her chin and started tapping it. Perhaps we put out a prize so tempting they couldn't resist snatching at. What kind of prize? Carleon asked, intrigued. Hera pointed to one of the less fortified forest areas. I lead a small expedition here, along with Narcissus, and draw the enemy out into the open. And once they've committed and are far from their defenses, we draw them into a battle that they cannot run from. Abruptly, Urgash straightened from where he was lounging. You mean to use yourself as bait? He growled, sounding displeased. Yes, Urgast. Hera nodded. That's a fool's errand, Hera, Urgast protested. Torash grimaced but made no comment, any more than Hera did. Over his years of service, Urgast had earned the right to speak freely, especially in regards to his charge's safety. Instead of calling her bodyguard to account, Hera simply nodded in agreement. I know that this endeavor will be very dangerous, but we are left without options. Send us into the forests, Urgast offered, pressing fist to chest. My people have fought amongst the trees for centuries before Aemon gave us our lands back. We can drive your enemies out without risking you. Carlion shook his head. I am sorry, Urgast, he said respectfully. You are a peerless warrior, but our enemy is deeply entrenched, so we have no idea what kind of defenses they've erected. We can break through those, Urgast declared. Orcs have broken stone fortresses. We can break wood just as easily. Perhaps, Carlion stroked his chin. I think it's a good idea, Hera. He glanced at his father for the prince's approval. Cronin considered for a moment, then breathed out slowly. How many would you put toward this cause? No more than 50,000. Hera said. If we move quickly, we'll be able to make it look like a supply run. That's a good idea. Yeah, Hera, said Carlion, as if he were considering other ideas regarding the plan. Cronin stroked his beard. We would have to make it clear that you and Narcissus are leading them, he mused. We'll put up as many banners as possible, make it as flamboyant a show as possible. Perhaps we should only put up Narcissus's banner, Hera said coolly. I fought them enough for them to know me and be afraid of me. But Narcissus is relatively famous for being an impulsive fool. True, Cronin agreed. For the sake of this plan, I and Carlion will stay behind. Smirking, Hera turned her head toward her brother. I'm sure you're oh so happy not to have to measure cocks with our beloved cousin, she remarked. Oh yes, Carlion returned the smirk with his customary good humor. Measuring how many roosters we have is a rather treasured pastime of mine. Torash covered a laugh in his arm. Urgast made no effort to conceal his hilarity. The orc captain threw back his head and guffawed, along with the rest of Hera's bodyguard. Putting her hand over her mouth, Hera leaned over and put her hand on the table to stop herself from collapsing on the floor laughing. Cronin did not laugh, but he did smile at his son's jest. What? Carlion asked with feigned innocence. You were referring to chickens, weren't you, sister? Unable to contain her mirth, Hera leaned against the table and continued laughing. And that'll be the end for today.
So yeah, the chat's really going wild about this Narcissus fellow.
Yes, apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Narcissus is the hero, am I right?
Real humble chap.
Not necessarily, actually.
It seems unironically incredibly obvious. Unironically incredibly obvious. Unironically incredibly obvious.
It's actually not him. Hera is actually the main character.
Like, wow.
It's technically an ensemble piece, but Hera is the main character. Though I think that it's safe to say that Narcissus has the biggest arc of anybody.
I was incredibly sure.
Having a single main character is overrated anyways.
Yeah.
Protagonists for the win.
Yeah. I'm happy to have dual protagonists in this case. Though we also have to bring on our final guest for the day. Please welcome
That was well worth the damn wait.
You did that intro yourself, did you?
Yeah, I did. Ugh.
Greetings, Insect Shop.
Good.
Hi.
That was worth the wait. That was impressive.
Yeah.
I might make another one, honestly, because I'm not proud of that one, honestly.
Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
it's definitely better than what I could do.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. I have terror. Even if I were to like try doing like a thing using a not a like on not paper, like on like a tablet or something, my dysgraphia would prevent me from doing anything other than like stick figures. Yeah. So, any other thoughts, like in terms of like the beginning, or thoughts of where this is going to go?
Not yet.
I
Too
like
early.
the Eltish.
Too early, yeah.
Yeah. I guess like I guess so. What did you like think of the characters from what was read? Did it feel like it was kind of a natural, relatively dysfunctional extended family meeting?
Yes, pretty much.
Yeah. It's got pretty rational. I mean, the characters definitely all stand out in their own way. We definitely get a sense of who these people are.
All I got from it was I must eliminate my brother to secure my place in this house.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Royal families are dysfunctional anyway, generally. Am I right?
Yeah.
Well, that's because of inbreeding, usually.
Yeah, technically yes. Though, admittedly, like it was a joke that said, "Oh, I say we kill him and take his dragon." That was admittedly a joke.
No. I like where your head is at. Let's explore that.
Yeah, it's.
Look,
I think
murder the hero.
Don't-
Look. If you want to be king or queen, you gotta make a few heads roll. Sometimes they're related to you.
Not the
Yeah.
glorious Narcissus.
Yeah, I think you'll be surprised at where this goes. At least I hope that you will be surprised.
What, he really is the hero?
Uh,
Don't mind me.
it's well, depends on your definition of hero.
Oh, okay.
He's definitely one of the protagonists, and I guess he could be considered the hero, but the main protagonist is Hera. But this is less dysfunctional in terms of they don't think he's worthy of killing. They think he's going to get himself killed on his own, I think. Yeah.
I got it, boss. We make it look like an accident.
Even better, it actually is an accident.
Mhm.
Even better for us. Less work to do.
Yeah, I'm always trying to make it better. That's why I'm giving it to you guys to take a look at. Any other feedback before we go to Count Valerian and Moth
Actually,
Master?
Moth can go. Moth can go now.
Okay.
So I can go eating.
Okay. Cool.
Okay. I'm testing out the like delay on my microphone, because I don't know if you guys can hear the echo or anything.
No.
No echo.
I don't hear an echo.
No
Oh,
echo.
really?
Okay, good. I admit it took a while for me to like choose a story, because I was like, oh god, which one to read? All right, here we go. I guess let's see here. 273,000. That was the count by one of the coroners. 270,000 lives dead in the destruction of Kirafar. Swords, axes, arrows, and several other forms of weaponry had no targets nor bodies to impale nor slice. It was poison. The food was poison. The giants did it. They poisoned them. They brought it back to the colony and destroyed them all. The sisters could not prevent anything. And fleeing the colony was a death sentence in the rain. The kingdom was grey, dead, and decayed. Oh my god, I messed that up. The Zol Queen, the Stone King, cried out in horror as he ran to the mountain of clumped dirt and began digging furiously. Fear was crossed on a scarred face, and his aged fur began to become filthy as he threw mud behind him in desperation. She must be here. He soon grew tired and collapsed in the kingdom's remains, exhausted and in tears. She must be here. He clutched some of the earth at one of the kingdom's walls. Sir? Leftroth had a kind hand on the king's shoulder. Leave the kingdom. If the poison had not killed her, surely the flood would have. Silence, you blind fool! The king has snarled. She must still be alive. She must be. I know she won't give up like this. A hand forced its way through the dirt and grabbed the king's fur, forcing him in the mud. He gasped and he tried to break us up. Okay, this thing is not working at all. Oh god. Dang it. The hand I can't do this. Not with this stutter on. Ugh.
Do you want me to read it for you?
Yeah.
Or Carl, either one. I think Carl's a better reader than me, to be perfectly honest.
Hit me.
Let me try.
I'll do, or if you, I'll do it too. But if you want to choose like Carl or Dunn, I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah.
It's it's perfectly fine. Like, however you want to do it. I totally understand.
Yeah, it's just not doing anything really. It's just making it worse actually.
It's totally understandable. Performance issues, stage fright, whatever.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
All of those.
Yeah, totally understandable. I totally get it. Definitely, like if you need somebody else to read, totally go for it.
Yeah.
I'm up for it.
It might take a while, so In the meantime, I think Count should read.
Valerian?
Well, I am still eating.
Oh,
Can I just say something though, Mothmaster? I know this is gonna sound bizarre,
oh God.
but for some reason, when you were reading, an image came to my mind of like you know those Hispanic gang members, the kind wearing the bandanas on their head with the wife beater on, like the white wife beater and everything. I'm imagining a moth wearing one of like in that kind of outfit, like your design, holding a Glock, but I
I'm
don't know
going
why.
to draw that.
Looking like a hood moth, and I have no idea why that image popped in my head.
I'm going to draw that one way or another.
That does sound fantastic. Please draw that. That sounds awesome.
I'm trying to think of a pun to go with it, like your time's up, mother buzzer, or something like
There's
that. I have no idea.
That has with an M in it, but I can't remember.
Perfect. All right. Let me check.
So, I mean, I could read something, but I'm eating at the same time, so it might be a little bit interrupted.
All right.
No worries.
Let's see.
Maybe
So
I should have
that-
just read. Maybe I should have read some more stuff, or let Tark and the rest read more of their stuff.
You could do that too if you want to. If you want to read a bit more of yours.
No, I read for a while.
Actually, I kind of want to read a scene I posted to the beta the other day that's way later in my book, but I just want to read it because I think it's very poignant, and it explains why a civet is what a civet is in my world. And I think people might like that.
Yeah.
I think in reference to the gangster moth. I like that.
Oh yeah, I got it. I have no idea why that came into my head.
We're all mad.
Yep, and I definitely admit to being one of the crazier and crasser people in the thing. If I can, I think like a stream isn't complete until a Valerian stream isn't complete until a no comment remark is made.
That's true. I haven't said no comment yet.
You just did. Yeah, it's complete.
Well, technically, I guess. Technically.
And we're all about technicalities here.
Well, if it's any consolation, I can read the story from Mothmaster. He just sent me the Google Doc.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
And we'll let
All right.
Valerian read it.
Yeah. Is some like of the names are a bit weird, but I'm hoping that it can be like easily like seen how it's pronounced. I guess.
Oh, I love me some strangely written names. I will pull out all my expertise on this matter. So, here we go. 273,000. That was the count by one of the coroners. 273,000 lives dead in the destruction of Girafar, lit giant's fear. Swords, axes, arrows, and several other forms of weaponry had no targets, nor bodies to impale, nor slice. It was poison. The food was poisoned. The giants did it. They poisoned them. They brought it back to the colony and destroyed them all. The sisters could not prevent anything, and fleeing the colony was a death sentence in the rain. The kingdom was gray, dead, decayed. The Julthal Queen, Stone King Graf 10, Hippogriff Talon, cried out in horror as he ran to the mountain of clump dirt and began digging furiously. Fear was crossed on his scarred face, and his aged fur began to become filthy as he threw mud behind him in desperation. She must be here! Graf Talon soon grew tired and collapsed in the dead kingdom's remains, exhausted and in tears. She must be here. He clutched some of the earth that were the kingdom's walls. Sir, Leftroth laid a kind hand on the king's shoulder. Leave the kingdom. If the poison had not killed her, surely the flood would have. Silence, you blind fool! Graf Talon snarled loudly. She must still be alive! She must be! I know she won't give up like this! A hand forced its way through the dirt and grabbed the king's fur, forcing him into the mud. He gasped and tried to raise up. The hand turned into an arm, and a head poked out. The Jolthal Queen's other hand grabbed beside her Graf Talon's face, and he arced back, pulling the queen out of the filthy mud. He fell backwards and collapsed into the soaked ground, and the queen sat on top of him. Stone King? She asked him. The moth's fur stood up on end as he noticed her hands on his chest. The queen immediately put her hands behind her and looked away from him. He tried to get up, to no avail. Queen of Girafar, could you get off me, please? Yes, sir, the queen mumbled, and she rolled off him. My queen, what now? Graf Talon raised up to his feet. Your kingdom. I know, the blind ant-queen growled. The giants did this. The giants? The Moth King flinched. They attacked you as well? As well? Did they? What of your kingdom, Graf Talon? They tried. The little giants managed to steal some of our children. He looked away from her in shame. They were too fast. They fled into their dens as fast as they came. Stars know what they did with them. He brushed his antenna a little. My sincerest apologies. The queen stepped forward and wrapped her arms around him in a hug. I pray you strike those giants down. What? Graf Talon flinched. Strike them down? He grabbed her shoulders and his face leaned into hers. Are you mad, my lady? Strike those things down? Graf Talon, the Troth's voice called. The Moth King's grip on the queen's arms loosened as he realized his mistake. He immediately bent his knee and hanged his head down. Forgive me, my lady, I became mad for a moment. Do not worry, Graf Talon. You have every right to do so. You lost your children, and I lost my kingdom. The queen almost laughed a bit. We have our own troubles, and I pray that we both recover. She sat down in the mud and hugged him again, and his fur stood up on end. But for now, I must ask something important. The Jolthal Queen laid her head against his. Do you happen to have any spare axes? Swords, maybe? Of course. Why do you ask? He tilted his head. If you happen to know their location, I would love to pay them a visit. Oh. The king was a tad stunned to hear a lady, such a lady, say a thing like that. Oh, my word. Well, what is your stance? Do I have permission to fight by your side? The king's words turned to a chuckle. Permission granted. The queen's hand gently scratched his fur. Now let us send those giants to the darkest of stars. And that's the end.
I'm screaming, man. Oh my god, that was amazing. My face literally was in pain from smiling so much. My god. I loved it.
So that was a full cold reading. I have not looked any farther ahead. I was reading that completely cold. First time.
Oh my
Impressive.
god.
Both of you.
Thank you.
That was well done.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling that emotion. You got something real good here, Mothmaster.
God, the voices were exactly how I imagined them. I was like, oh my god.
I wrote something in the comments, and I'm still riding high on that idea of what I gave earlier, and I just thought of something that goes something kind of like, "Yo, man, we have like guns now, and wings. We as fly as moths come, man." Luis Featherwing of the Fire Ant Gang.
Perfect. I love these ideas.
I am now imagining a moth gang war.
I don't know. I'm considering doing the ants as because ants are all are all usocial and everything. They're commies.
Oh, definitely.
Communist ants.
For glory of glorious queen. We mentioned glory twice because she is so glorious.
You know that T.H. White had ants as, I'm not sure if they were communists or fascists, but there was some kind of totalitarian.
Yes, Becca, yes.
Yeah.
I'll definitely be looking at
He's got the fascist or communist, the totalitarian ants, and he's got the libertarian geese.
Yeah, fascism is totalitarianism. Communism is just sharing everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's sharing a part
Although
of it.
the two are not mutually exclusive, one could make an argument that the Soviet Union was fascist.
The ants
Honestly, if Lenin had just waited a few more years for the revolution, he probably would have called it a fascist revolution. Because lest we forget, Mussolini started his career as a leftist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the ants
Indeed.
do share stuff. They share everything. It gets kind of disgusting, actually.
They're anarcho-primitivists.
Indeed. Very, very anarcho-primitivist.
They're not real commies. Look down our noses at these savages.
No. Those black ants, they are not real communists. They are
True.
not red like us.
It was the same person as those
Fire ants. They are red. This means they are true communists. Yeah.
They are comrades. They are comrades, cousin comrades, if you will.
Any sane people must be ejected immediately.
Oh, wait a minute. Some ants are created more equal than others. That's the way the world is.
4 legs good,
Alrighty.
6 legs better.
Yes,
Alrighty.
yes.
Alrighty. Well, so since we have moths done, is our friend Valerian finished with his sumptuous meal?
I'm pretty much almost practically done. Let me share my screen, because by popular demand, I'm bringing back Bozo.
Wait, what?
Bringing back Bozo. Is my screen coming up shared properly?
You ready to be traumatized?
That's what I was preparing myself for.
Oh, this is just a bunch of mummies and a giant clam eating a bug. That's all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Hold on for a minute. Wait till you hear the click. Okay.
Okay. Half a second. Sorry. Sorry about that. Okay. Chapter 8, More Boring Adventures. As he got up and put on his, I visited the elves and all I got was this lousy t-shirt, Bozo decided that 2 female characters weren't too many after all. Pardon me. The druid gathered everyone together. Pardon me, just 1 second. There. Okay, good. As you know, he waffled, our task is to find Sauron's diary. In order to do this, we must get inside the library. A perilous place. To get inside the library, we're going to need fake IDs. So we need to visit an old friend of mine and get him to do the job for us. He's the greatest counterfeiter since Al Capone. Then I need to go talk to some dead people because I don't have a clue what the shades I'm doing. What? Roared Bombador. You bleep 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 bleep. Maybe it's time someone who really knew how to lead led us. Like me, for example. Anderson defended his friend the druid. I like Waffle One. He's very smart and dresses with almost elvish taste. So shut up, you stupid human. Bombador punched Anderson in the mouth. Things might have gone badly, but fortunately the druid turned Bombador into a frog. That settles that, he said with a cruel smile. Don't worry, said Bozo. This consulting the dead business is just a formality. Whatever Waffle One decides to do will turn out to be right. It's almost boring how routine all this is. That night, Bozo did some thinking in indirect speech. So far, things were going fairly well. He had got the girl. The style was repetitious, but at least the author had a grasp of English vocabulary, unlike certain fantasy authors who misused the word reticent. It had been amusing when Fred had tried to write indecent poetry about Excedrin earlier that day, only to have the druid tell him, "This is not porn, and besides, she's mine." And Excedrin is the traumatic lady. That anyway. And even more amusing when Lovelinda had told Fred, "You're kind of good-looking, but rather boring. So nah." Fred had always fancied himself a lady killer. Yeah, right. As if. No way. Suddenly, Bozo stopped short, realizing that the use of indirect speech was becoming appallingly cliché. The next day, they visited the druid's friend Enron. "Well met, after all these years," he cried, clasping Enron's hand. "Whenever you say that, it means you want to leech me," said Enron, shaking Waffleon's hand vigorously. "What is it this time?" "We need fake IDs in order to break into the library and get killed." "My counterfeiting skills are crummy," said Enron. "Besides, what's in it for me?" "Control of the White House?" suggested Waffleon. "I completely refuse to even remotely contemplate ever doing this. I would rather be forced to watch Jerry Springer reruns in hell." "Bleep you," said the dwarf. "What he said," agreed Bombador. "Don't worry. After refusing for 4 or 5 pages, he'll agree to do it," said Bozo. "They always do." And so he did. "Oh," said Bluff. Then they went to the hellhole, and the druid talked to a bunch of dead people who showed him some weird visions that he didn't understand, especially those involving Pokemon. "That was really scary," said Fred. "You're right," retorted Bozo. After a while, they arrived at the library. "If you enter the library, beware." No, actually. "If you enter the library, beware," said Anderson to the druid. "Whatever," said the druid. "Don't worry," began Bozo, but Fred and Waffleon gagged him, and he said no more that day. Then they traveled a bit. No, they didn't. They slept for a while before preparing to enter the library. Now, here's a question. The next 2 chapters I read already on Halloween. Should I read them again, or should I skip them?
Whichever.
Okay. Let's go on. Okay. Probably best carry on reading these then. Chapter 9. Ew. This place is very dangerous, said the druid. Well, duh, remarked Bozo. Blood and ooze streaked from the jaws of the front door, and above it the words, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." Rotting corpses littered the front stairs, and a crow crew 3 times the word, "Blood." The blood was slick and slippery and red and kind of off-putting. "We're all gonna die," yelled Fred. "Nah," said Bozo, "only 1 or 2 of us. Although some disgusting monster or other should be attacking us about now. It'll probably have even worse breath than the nasty." They entered the library and immediately were set upon by a monster so revolting that they all vomited, except for Fred and Levelinda, who passed out. It had enormous tentacles equipped with suction cups that were leaking of the brains of its prey, enormous mandibles chewing at their guts and smoking their pancreases like a cigar, antennae that oozed venomous grain slime, an enormous maw that regurgitated vital organs, 200 skeleton-like legs, the works. "Show it your IDs," yelled the druid. They did, and it paused to let them in. Then it attacked again, its antennae twitching, its mandibles foaming, etc., etc. It seized the dwarf, chewing him slowly and with great relish while he still lived. Blah, 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 before spitting him out. Then the druid threw a paper airplane at it and killed it. "Ho, ho, ho," said Bluff. "The dwarf is dead." "I won't miss the bleep," said Bombador. "Whatever," gasped the dying dwarf. "Whatever," said the druid. "Whatever," said Bombador. "Whatever." "Ho, whatever," said Bluff. "Whatever," said Annison. "Whatever," said Excedrin. "Whatever," said Levelinda. "Whatever," said Fred. "Whatever," said the monster. "Even I'm getting sick of that word," said Bozo. "Anyway, haven't these funeral obsequies gone on for long enough?" "They have," said Wolflon. "Let us continue on our way." They spent a lot of time wandering through dank, musty passageways, trying not to slip on the blood. They picked up keys and potions and experience points on the way, but apart from the occasional whereat, not an awful lot happened. The Druids used to hang out here a lot, pretending to study their lore, before Batty invaded the place, blaring rap from a boombox, and put them all to a gruesome death, said Wolflon cheerfully. Then he then proceeded to a minute description of the precise way in which each of the Druids had died. "This is getting a bit gratuitous," said Bozo in between retches. Eventually they came to an ancient door. "Sauron's diary is behind that door," said the Druid, "but we can rest before going in there. That's going to be a seriously dangerous thing." As they rested, Fred said, "This place gives me the creeps." "You're about to do something stupid, like breaking in there by yourself," said Bozo. "You really shouldn't, of course, but the narrative requires that you do so." "Okay," said Fred. He banged on the door and yelled, "Honey, I'm home!" "Shut up, you idiot!" hissed the Druid. "Bozo told me to," whined Fred. Wolflon glared at Bozo, but the latter just shrugged. And chapter 10 is... This part is scary. A mummy opened the door. "Did someone call?" it inquired. "We're in for it now," whined Bombador. "Grrr," said the mummy. Bozo threw a couple of elf stony things at it. "Ooh," said the mummy. "I'm telling." They went inside and were instantly attacked by hordes of mummies. These guys weren't playing around either. They meant business. They had been kept there by some magic hoodoo thingy in order to protect Sauron's diary from the throngs of people who would otherwise have got hold of it and used it for evil purposes, such as basing appallingly bad television shows on it. The mummies attacked viciously. Anison screamed. Fred fainted. Bozo forgot to say anything sarcastic. Abracadabra, said the druid. The monsters paused. Wolflum pulled a rabbit out of a hat. The monsters fled in terror. The druid collapsed, but no one paid much attention, as they were more concerned with a giant clam that kept opening and shutting its mouth. It was in the middle of the room. It was scary. Within its maw, they saw a book. This was the last and most terrible guardian of Sauron's diary. Bummer, said Fred. Use your sword, silly, said Bozo. This is the bit where you redeem yourself. Huh, said Fred. I did what you said last time and it didn't work. You don't get it, do you? Snapped Bozo. Just do it already. Fine, said Fred. But I'll haunt you if I die. You're right, grunted Bozo. Fred attacked the clam and killed it. Bozo lifted the book and removed it from the monster's maw. I love the illustrations, said Fred. Now it's my turn to do something stupid and redeem myself, said Bozo. Hey, bad guys, come and get us. Wombledore growled. What purpose do you two serve anyway? We're the protagonists, retorted Bozo. Deal with it. A bunch of nasties attacked. Boo, they said. Eek, said everyone. Whatever, said Bozo, tossing some elfstone thingummies at the monsters. Yikes, said the monsters and ran away. Whoa, way cool, said everyone. And that will do, I think.
I love the Minds of Moria parody. This is so funny.
Yeah, it is a bit. I guess it is a bit Minds of Moria. I guess there's a little bit of that in there.
Yeah. Very, very good work.
Thank you, my good people. Thank you.
Yeah. We're the protagonists, and you better deal with it.
It's only a little better too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was fun. A lot of good writing shared today. That was very, very funny.
Nonsense. Nonsense. Television is never bad.
Of course.
Just look at The Simpsons. It's been going on for like 30 plus years. It's not terrible and dry.
Just look at Game of Thrones season 8. Season anything really. Well, since after season 5.
No, season 4. Beginning of season 5 onwards.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you guys so much for coming. I will post the links in the description for your stuff. I'm excited to be presenting. I'm so happy that they're able to present their work on this platform. Please check out Carl Saylor's book. It's available for free during the pandemic. There'll be links to it in this and other description and in the descriptions of the other videos where he shows up. If you want to support his work, please go there. And if you want to join the Discord, please come on. If you want to have any discussion topics for Wednesdays, totally do that. We'll be taking a break from Fire Can I Call It Dragon to take a look at a Game of Thrones Season 8 defense video by Remarkable Republican.
That'll be a riot.
Why must you hurt these people this way?
Oh, come on. Remarkable Republican is hilarious.
Or rather, why must you hurt yourself? We love you, Dunn. We don't want you to hurt yourself like this.
It's too late. He's watched too many of these videos already. It's destroyed his soul.
I've watched Maggie May Fish. Maggie May Fish destroyed me. That was my sanity a long time ago. You
know someone's going to mention pans and raccoons about now, right?
You've never seen have you seen a Maggie May Fish video yet, Tarek?
Yes, I have. I actually watched it on your server. It was the one about dads.
Oh yeah, that one's one of the worst. That one's like middling in terms of bad.
My soul hurt.
Yep, I haven't seen that, but I did get to listen on the School of Movies and the aeroplane and the pans and all that stuff. No comment.
I think I think that Maggie May Fish is worse than School of Movies by virtue of like I think like she like I think like I think the worst video we've seen for Maggie is her Fight Club video. That's like an hour long. It took me and Smud and a few other people about 9 hours to cover it completely.
You didn't do that all in one go, I hope.
No, not in one go. It took 3 streams. Each one is 3 hours.
Thank heavens.
Yep. Yeah, the Remarkable Republican, 30 minutes of defending the long night. You excited?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That'll be alright.
But that will be Monday. We'll do that. Instead of Fire Can't Dragon, we'll pick up Fire Can't Dragon the week after. This channel is clearly turning into a Game of Thrones channel, even though most of the people in the server have not seen it nor have read the books.
It's destiny. You cannot escape your destiny.
Yeah, indeed. What can you do? Well, we will conclude it there and say bye.
See ya.
Don't die, minions.